the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, there is a single anomaly within Jujutsu sorcerers, that being Gojo Satoru. It is said that no Jujutsu sorcerer can come close to him, at least human, that is. However, there is one exception in that rule, one single human that could be somewhat compared to Gojo and had the potential to be the next Gojo. Which is that someone? Yuta Okkotsu. Despite some people doubting whether this man can achieve greatness or not, let me tell you, Yuta definitely proved them wrong. Today, we'll be examining all forms and abilities of Yuta Okkotsu, starting off from his humble and quiet normal beginnings as a child, all the way to his literal godlike form that, if perfected, can literally solo any character in Jujutsu Kaisen. Starting off with his child form. You see, at some point during his childhood, Yuta met Rika Orimoto, another young girl about the same age as him, and the two of them became friends. While spending time together, they promised to marry each other when they grew up. Unfortunately, however, Rika was killed by a street accident right in front of Yuta. Yuta accidentally uttered her name, which subconsciously cursed her soul to remain with him and turned into a vengeful cursed spirit. Due to Yuta's lineage and relationship with Michizane Sugawara, aka one of the greatest sorcerers to ever live, Yuta always had a hidden talent for sorcery, even if he did not know it at that time. This resulted in him accidentally turning his best friend into a cursed spirit right after her death. Because of that, Rika kept haunting him for several years. And let me tell you, people that happened to make fun of Yuta surely regretted it. While growing up, Rika would harm anyone saying something bad to Yuta, causing Yuta to isolate himself in order to protect people from being killed. This was only the first form of Yuta, and it only goes uphill from here, because the evolution Yuta had in the series might have been crazier than even the one of the protagonists, Yuji Itadori, had. Like the video, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep going. Moving on to his second form, which comes a few years later, Yuta as a cursed teenager. You see, Yuta is now around 15 years old, and he does not know how to control either his cursed energy nor his cursed spirit. Someday, news comes out that he's involved in an incident where 4 students who were bullying him were seriously injured, having been crammed into a locker. As anyone can guess, this was the work of Rika and not Yuta himself. Because of that, the Tokyo Magic College notices that Yuta is cursed and takes him to be executed, something that Yuta actually agrees with. However, before this actually happened, Satoru Gojo manages to get Yuta enrolled into the college and paused his execution for a while in reality, Gojo was making sure this would never actually happen. Yeah, I know the previous form was kinda brief, but it is what it is. We now move on to his third form, first year Jujutsu Sorcerer. Gojo brings Yuta to Jujutsu High in order to enroll as a first-year student. As Yuta steps into class to meet with Panda, Maki, Zenin, and Toge Inumaki, Yuta's aura is immaculate. All 4 students realize this guy is cursed, and even more than that, cursed by an insanely strong cursed spirit. The 3 of them prepare to attack Yuta, but thankfully they stop before Rika cut them into pieces. Gojo explains Yuta's situation to the class and then has them train together for the day. Yuta is paired up with Maki, where, truth be told, Yuta has some trouble with her attitude. But yeah, from there onwards, Yuta is sent on missions alongside his classmates in order to start learning and developing as a sorcerer. In one of those missions, Yuta and Maki are tasked to find some missing children. However, along their task, they get swallowed by a huge spirit, where at least they also find the missing kids. The important thing here, however, when it comes to Yuta's evolution, is Maki's encouragement to Yuta to go all out. By putting on the ring, Yuta has Rika come out, and oh boy, she goes insanely hard on that spirit, and thus all of them are saved, and the curse is exorcised. Afterwards, Yuta is given a katana by Gojo, who explains to Yuta how he can break the curse that is on Rika by imbuing the tool with the energy of the curse bit by bit. Now, from here onwards, Yuta begins going beast mode and shows everyone what a true prodigy he really is. I mean, at some point, Yuta participated in the Goodwill event held at Kyoto Jujutsu High. Wanna guess what happened? He single-handedly defeated the Kyoto school students, one after another, with one of them being Aoi Todo, a sorcerer that possesses one of the most overpowered arsenal of abilities. And yet Yuta, that has basically just become a sorcerer, destroyed all of them on his own. But moving on, we have Yuta meeting Geto Suguru. And do you know what the best part about their encounter was? Geto says, quote, "I don't really get what everyone sees in him." Oh, and yeah, he also says that, quote, Yuta cannot become the second Gojo. Okay, this is kinda hilarious to me, as the 2 things Geto said about Yuta turned out to both be insanely off. As a small peek into what we'll analyze in a bit, Yuta actually destroyed Geto, not just once, but technically twice. And yet his second quote about Yuta not being able to become the second Gojo is even worse. Why? Well, you'll see in a bit. But for now, let's move on to Yuta's 4th form, first year sorcerer awakened all-out form. You see, Geto executes his plan and successfully separates Gojo from his students. Because of that, Geto manages to destroy all of Rika, Inumaki, and Panda. When Yuta saw what happened to his friends, oh, you better believe this was about to go down. Yuta gets angry and summons Rika to his side. As Geto launches multiple spirits to attack Yuta, Yuta defends against them all and manages to rescue his friends and heal them by using an advanced form of reversed curse technique. Remember, for someone to be able to not only use reverse curse technique on themselves, but also heal others, it's something extremely unique and rare in Jujutsu Kaisen. As Geto summons more spirits, Yuta uses Rika's powers to easily exorcise all the spirits through the use of a megaphone with the Inumaki's cursed speech seal attached to it. Yuta then goes on to demonstrate his insanely insanely overpowered ability to not only copy techniques, but also use them to an extremely high level from the get-go. Yuta manages to get close to Geto using a sword, while Geto using the playful cloud. Yuta decides to continue to fight and get close again, but Geto manages to break Yuta's katana. Yuta simply punches Geto, which forces Geto to distance himself. After a brief chat the two have with each other, Geto decides to use all of his spirits against Yuta and Rika through the extreme quantity cursed spirit manipulation Uzumaki technique. Yuta resolves to fully release Rika's power at the cost of his life with use of a binding vow technique. So yeah, this dude can even form binding vows at this point. Before they start, Yuta asks Rika to give him her powers to defeat Geto, promising to be with her in the afterlife forever. Then he kisses her, causing her to grow one eye and grow numerous times in strength. Upon seeing this, Geto becomes infuriated, calling Yuta a womanizer, to which Yuta calmly replies that it was pure love. They fire a blast strong enough to exercise all of Geto's spirits and force Geto to retreat. A few moments later, Yuta bids a tearful goodbye to Rika as she fades away. Before fading away, Rika thanks Yuta for helping her be with him all these years. But yeah, don't be afraid, because as we'll see in a bit, this was not the last we see of Rika. Not even close, actually. Okay, so having covered the base forms of Yuta, let's now move on to his most serious form. We now have the second-year student form. You see, at this point, Yuta is already considered second to only Gojo when it comes to Jujutsu sorcerers. Because of that, Yuta was tasked with a mission that took place in Africa. He was to study and train under Miguel, while also trying to find how or where he can get black rope, a cursed tool that was used and created by Miguel's clan in Africa. It possesses the ability to disturb and cancel the effects of cursed techniques. Because of his absence in Africa, Yuta's not around during the events of Shibuya, but he is around post-Shibuya when the higher-ups command the execution of Yuji. At the Jujutsu headquarters, Yuta volunteers and is accepted as the executioner of Yuji. Yuta enters into a binding vow with them and states he doesn't care if Yuji Itadori is Gojo's pupil, because he was responsible for cutting off Toge Inomaki's arm in Shibuya. Yuta then says he will kill Yuji Itadori himself. Yuta arrives at where Yuji and Choso are facing off against Naoya Zenin and comments on how Yuji isn't alone. He jumps down and shocks Choso and Yuji with him breaking the concrete. Yuta looks over at Naoya and asks who he is, who says that Yuji is bait for someone he wants to meet. Yuta leaves Naoya to deal with Choso while he chases after Yuji and surprises him with his speed. Yuji jumps over a car as Yuta tries to slash him but fails. Yuta thinks to himself about how he was sure he sliced Yuji and tells Yuji he's like Maki. Yuji grabs a car and throws it at Yuta, who throws it back at Yuji. But oh well, despite not looking like it, Yuta is actually insanely powerful when it comes to raw physical strength as well. The two continue to face off against each other until Yuta accidentally seemingly kills Yuji, thus fulfilling the conditions of the binding vow he entered. But the moment Yuji is about to die, he heals him back and saves his life. And yet, the most badass moments of Yuta are only now unfolding, as Yuta is able to go almost all out during the Culling Games arc. During the Culling Games arc, Yuta swiftly and easily kills Droof. Yuta then engages with Kurorushi and attempts to exercise it without revealing that he is capable of using reverse curse technique. Though the Culling Game observers, Ryu Ishigori and Takako Uro, manage to see through his tricks and notice Yuta's incredible amounts of cursed energy. After these three engage in battle, Yuta basically fights against both of them at the same time, which after some time leads to this iconic manga panel of all three combatants opening their domain. Unfortunately for us, this causes the collapse of all three domain barriers. But surely all the fights Yuta went through cannot even compare to the two fights that are coming next. You see, Gojo and Sukuna battle is what can be described as nothing short of an epic clash. After numerous chapters, domain expansions, insane techniques from both combatants, and of course, a fair share of memes with the two sides, Gojo fans and Sukuna fans dissing on each other on who was stronger, the end result is that Gojo ends up dying. Because of that, what Yuta needs to do now is inevitable. After some characters, like the fraud Kashimo, fail to even entertain Sukuna, it's Yuta's turn to go up against the King of Curses. His first task is to try and fight Sukuna with the help of Yuji. Yuta goes on to try his best, and during the process, Yuji and Yuta successfully manage to reach Megumi's soul. However, after all that happened, with Megumi basically killing his own sister, teacher, and a bunch more innocent people, as well as receiving the burden of a bunch of infinite voids from Gojo, Megumi has no strength left to keep going. As a result, the efforts of Yuji and Yuta prove fruitless, and Sukuna manages to land a cleave with Yuta being severely injured. On the bright side, Yuta did finally show us his domain expansion, true mutual love, during the fight with Sukuna. But what exactly does this domain expansion do? Hear me out. The domain takes the form of an enclosed space filled with the ruins of several cross-shaped structures. Huge ropes surround the space, tied together in a special knot that represents love in Japanese culture. The most notable feature of this area is the unlimited number of katanas spread throughout the space. Yuta's domain is unique from other domains, in that while each domain barrier is imbued with the user's own domain, Yuta has a large number of choices for imbuing any curse technique he has copied into the domain barrier. While in domain expansion, Yuta is able to use the following techniques. 1. Thin Icebreaker, a technique that Yuta copied from former curse user and Culling Game player Takako Uro. Thin Icebreaker is an expansion technique derived from Uro's curse technique, Sky Manipulation. In this technique, the user does not directly hit the target. Instead, they strike the surface of the sky, causing the surface to shatter like ice and generate a powerful aftershock that affects the target with increased force. 2. Cursed Speech, a powerful curse technique copied from Inumaki Toge. This technique allows the user to imbue their voice with cursed energy and force their target to obey their commands. The stronger the order or target, the more cursed energy the user must expend, and the greater the consequences on their body. However, with Yuta being able to use reverse curse technique, this ability, although still it cannot be used 100% freely, does give more freedom to Yuta to attack with more overpowered commands, and thus heal himself later on. 3. The curse technique of Droof. This technique allows Yuta to summon Shikigamis that take the form and create an unbreakable barrier, causing a powerful side effect that hits the target hard. 4. Precognition, a curse technique copied from Charles, which allows him to summon a cursed item that must draw blood from its target to fulfill the ink condition. Once the condition is met, he can mark his target with a manga panel and see his future. 5. Jacob's Ladder, a curse technique copied from Angel. This technique is one of the most overpowered ones in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. If actually mastered, it looks and acts more ritualistic than other techniques. Jacob's Ladder manifests a pillar of light, inside which small winged beings fly. Any cursed object in contact with light will be purged instantly. And finally, 6. Cleave, a curse technique copied from the very king of curses that, as the name suggests, cleaves anything in its path. But having done so much, even while in domain expansion and having used all these overpowered abilities against Sukuna, none of them was enough to defeat the king of curses. The only choice left, Yuta to take the final form in today's video, Gojo's body. You see, a few chapters prior to that, we saw how Yuta defeated and beheaded Kenjaku that was now occupying Geto's body. Yuta manages to copy Kenjaku's curse technique, and, well, you'll see in a bit how it's used. As we explained, Yuta was defeated by Sukuna, but while Sukuna was distracted with a seeming victory, Maki Zenin entered the domain to stab through him. Yuta's body was then carried away by a tearful Rika and transported back to headquarters by Ui. At headquarters, Yuta is treated for his wounds that are fatal, only maintaining consciousness due to Rika. He tells Shoko to enact on their final resort plan. She tells him once his brain is placed in Gojo's body to use his reverse curse technique at maximum. In Gojo's body, Yuta returns to the battlefield confronting Sukuna. Upon seeing the stitches pattern on his head, Sukuna realized it was Yuta residing inside Gojo's corpse and was impressed and ecstatic that Yuta went to these lengths. Yuta and Sukuna then activated their respective domains, Malevolent Shrine and Unlimited Void. Using Gojo's method of dealing with Malevolent Shrine, Yuta deployed a Shuriken barrier to withstand the effects of Sukuna's domain for the next 3 minutes. Yuta thinks to himself on how his own barrier techniques improved due to replacement training with Gojo and readies himself to damage Sukuna to the point he could no longer maintain Malevolent Shrine. Yuta attempts to pull Sukuna in with blue, but is blindsided when the King of Curses bypasses his infinity, who then restrained his arms and struck him in the face. Yuta begins to realize that Sukuna activated domain amplification while using his own domain. Elsewhere, a fully manifested Rika tearfully cradles Yuta's real body. And here is where I will explain the theory that I believe will end up coming true. At least while creating this video, Yuta is absolutely destroyed by Sukuna. If you recall, a few chapters ago, we saw Geto asking Gojo, are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest? Well, no matter what happens from here onwards, we will finally have an answer to this question. If Yuta loses, then Gojo was actually Gojo Satoru because he was the strongest. While if Yuta wins, then Gojo was the strongest because he was Gojo Satoru. What do I mean by that? Hear me out. Yuta, that is now in control of Gojo's body, is in a sense Gojo. If he wins, then this means that Yuta is now the strongest because he is Gojo. While if Yuta loses, then that means that Gojo was actually Gojo Satoru because he was the strongest. Meaning that Gojo was the strongest not only because of his body and his curse technique, but actually for what he was as well. And here is where a theory of mine comes in. If you recall, when Gojo was about to get sealed within the prison realm, he told Geto to wake up and not let Kenjaku use his body like that. At that moment, Geto's body reacted and tried to choke Kenjaku. As we explained in previous videos we made, Jujutsu Kaisen has posed us readers a major question: the body or the soul? What comes first? Or to put it more subtly, what is more important? We saw Toji's body winning against the soul of another sorcerer. We saw Geto's soul reacting to his body. Because of that, I strongly believe that Gojo's soul will be able to step up during the fight and take control over his own body in order to go full 1v1 once again against Sukuna. What do you think on that? Will Gojo fully return this way? Or am I just reaching? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And after that, well, click on this video next, where I am creating the strongest character in Jujutsu Kaisen's history. Go on, click it!